This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer.
What's Working with Cam Marston is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer. Stella Artois is a perfect beer for celebration. Nothing caps off a big sale, hitting your incentive goals, or a profitable quarter like a round of Stellas. Brewed first in 1708 as a special Christmas brew, today Stella is a gift for everyone to enjoy year-round. Stella Artois. Find it wherever fine beer is sold.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the radio show designed to bring you insights into the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace trends shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us. The show is designed to uncover the trends influencing Alabama business, and that's exactly what I've got queued up for you today. Susan Whitfield is the director of the Office of Human Resources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. And my thought in reaching out to Susan was, how hard is it today to hire a rocket scientist, an engineer who ultimately develops the rockets that send all these NASA missions into outer space? My thought was, it's got to be getting more and more challenging, because back in the day, NASA maybe was the only game in town. And if that's what you wanted to do, you only had one choice of employer. But today, of course, we've got all these super wealthy people building their own, space flight organizations. You got Elon Musk and you got Jeff Bezos, you got Sir Richard Branson, maybe there are more. And the market for hiring rocket scientists has gotten to be more competitive than it ever has been. And also on top of this, I'm wondering how many people, particularly young potential new hires with engineering degrees, are interested in working for NASA, which as a government agency is going to be budget strapped compared to what Jeff Bezos can pay. So what is their strategy? And the thinking here that perhaps Susan can give us some ideas that we can take into our own businesses and apply to recruit in a very tight recruiting environment. You may not be hiring rocket scientists, but you may be hiring somebody that's in demand out there. What is NASA doing to get these people? And what of these ideas can we steal and apply to our own organization? NASA, all federal agencies, historically budget strapped and really not able to pay the most competitive salaries. It probably is something that you can relate to your own business. Maybe we can steal an idea from Susan. So that's where we're going to go on this. So we'll have Susan on the line when we come back in a little bit. Upcoming in a future show, we're going to have a checking in with them. And for my new markets, those that this would be the second broadcast of What's Working in Montgomery, Birmingham, and Huntsville, what I try to do is reach out to previous guests who have done some interesting things since they and I last spoke, and put them on the show. And I was talking the other day to Billy Stitt. Those in Mobile may recognize the name Billy's Bacon, spelled BILL-E''S, Billy's Bacon, made in Fairhope, Alabama. Without a doubt, some of the best bacon on planet Earth. And Billy's been doing some pretty interesting things since he and I last spoke. We're going to get him on the air before too long, as well as some of the others. Carla Williams, you may recognize her name from my Mobilians. Her album, which she was working on, has been released. A country music, hopefully for her, breakthrough album that she continued to work on and has had some great support with really notable names in the Nashville music scene. And I want to get her back on the show to talk about what it was like to finally release this album after so many years of working on it and what she's going to do with it. So got a lot of fun things planned for the future. And as long as we're talking about people that have been on the show and things of that nature, it's time to get a shout out to some of our advertisers that have hung in there forever. I want to briefly mention Allison Horner. Allison was my first advertiser when the show started 5 years ago. She's never wavered. She's with State Farm. And regardless of where you are in the state of Alabama, Allison has told me she can write a policy for you. Homeowners, insurance, whatever it may be, reach out to Allison Horner with State Farm. So when we come back, I'm going to have Susan Whitfield with me. Before we go, I want to talk to you about the professionals at Sandifer Wealth. Sandifer Wealth Management can help you find the right retirement strategies to conserve your wealth and the right investments to provide the income you may need during retirement. I know Mark Salyers. I know Jamie Sandifer. I hope you'll give them a call. I'm a big fan of them. They came to a presentation I did in Mobile not long ago to support me, and I want to give a shout out to them as well. Sandifer Wealth Management. Find them online. They'd be glad to help you out. When we come back, Susan Whitfield, you're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. The Alabama Center for Real Estate, better known as ACRE, housed at the University of Alabama's Culverhouse College of Business, is committed to industry engagement and dedicated to shaping the future of real estate through excellence in teaching, research, and service to drive economic and workforce development in Alabama. ACRE and Alabama, a championship collaboration. Learn more at www.acre.culverhouse.ua.edu. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed at the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. Susan Whitfield is on the line with me. She's the director of the Office of Human Resources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. I thought about this not long ago, thinking about what would be an interesting show considering the Great Resignation. And I thought, well, what do you need to find, recruit, and retain rocket scientists? There can't be many of them out there. And I would suspect it's a very competitive marketplace for these rocket scientists. And I want to know how NASA does it. It's such a famed and legendary organization. Susan, thank you for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Good morning, Cam. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Tell me a little bit, Susan. I've got your bio here, but tell me a little bit about your background and what's led you to this position of leadership within the Marshall Space Flight Center.
Sure. Well, I started my career actually with the Army years ago outside of Boston, Massachusetts, as an executive assistant there with the Army Tactical Shelters Program. And so, I mean, the federal workforce in general is, it's a great career to have. There have been lots of opportunities along the way. When I moved to Huntsville in 1990, I had an opportunity to interview and come to work for NASA. I've had a number of positions, worked in the technology transfer department for a long time, and eventually found my way to the Office of Human Resources, which is now the Office of Human Capital, and I fell in love with that. And I think one of the reasons that I have been so drawn to that field is because it's the people. We're the people, which is exactly what you're talking about this morning. You know, how do we get the best of the best to come to work for NASA? So over the years, I've been with NASA now for a little over 30 years, and every day it's something new.
So I'm guessing here, Susan, back in the day, if I wanted to be in the rocketry industry, I likely had one or maybe two sources of places that I could seek employment. So it would be NASA or a defense contractor. It occurred to me that defense contractors likely use rocket scientists too. But today you've got NASA, continue to have the defense contractors. You've got Elon Musk's company. You've got Bezos's company, all these people using rockets. Sir Richard Branson. Tell me what it's like, Susan, to find, recruit, retain rocket scientists out there. First, what is the designation or the degree of somebody that is in the rocketry industry?
Well, for NASA, there are, class codes that are determined by the Office of Personnel Management. And at NASA, our designation for our engineers is an AST. That's Aerospace Technology. So there are specific degree requirements for that. It would be in engineering, some in IT, math, science, those kinds of things. And you're right. I mean, NASA used to be really kind of the only game in town when folks talked about being a rocket scientist. But as you pointed out, it's not that way anymore. And by design, right? I mean, we have over the years, we've developed partnerships. The goal has been to infuse technology and capabilities into industry and to grow, the space partnerships. And that has certainly happened. I mean, we see that with SpaceX and Blue Origin, and so we have to make sure that NASA is in a position that we can compete with these agencies. Our brand is still very strong. I mean, NASA is one of the most recognized names in the world.
Worldwide,
people think of space, worldwide. They do think of NASA, but they also, as you said, think of our partners. So we have, moving into the future of work has really been a wake-up call for NASA. I would say that folks are looking for more than just a 30-year career. I mean, in fact, we have found, a lot of the younger employees entering the workspace, the 30-year career is really not what motivates and moves them.
Right. They
are looking for hands-on work. They are looking for flexibilities in their day and how they work. And so NASA, in a lot of ways, and not unlike, government as a whole, we've had to shift about what is the employment contract? What are the up-and-coming rocket scientists looking for? And of course, it's not just rocket scientists. The mission support organizations are vitally important. We have information technology, we have science, but it's certainly, our engineers that make our rockets go.
So when I worked, I have a seminar business, and for years ago, I did a good bit of work for the IRS, and I would go to their locations across the company and teach these seminars. And one of the things that they told me as I was preparing to understand the IRS is it's very difficult for us, they said, Cam, to keep people compared to the private marketplace, where in the private marketplace, the employee can say, hey, boss, I need a new computer screen. And they could say, okay, go get one. Whereas in the government world, you had to apply for this and you had to bid it. And there's just so many hoops to jump through. I'm wondering if that's still the case. And I'm wondering if NASA has to go through that due to the extraordinary competitiveness in the marketplace for STEM talent, for the engineers that you referred to. How are you maintaining competitiveness with the private workplace? And before you answer, Susan, I'm backtracking here. My listener is typically a 45-year-old or older male. Our demographics show it's a primarily male listenership, who is in a position of influence in his business. It doesn't mean he's the owner or the boss. It just means they have some sense of influence in their business. And my goal for our conversation today is that we discuss something that will help this listener in their job in some way or another. So let's go back to the question, which was, how do you maintain a competitive role against the private marketplace as a government entity?
So it's a great question. And I will say that we are very fortunate, and I think that we have extremely low turnover when you look at us compared to even other federal agencies. Typically, NASA has had about a 4% annual turnover rate, which is extraordinarily low.
No kidding.
Recently, we've seen an uptick. Yes, and so we, in some respects, as I said, it is our work that people are drawn to, right? It is our mission. I mean, we are, our Artemis mission, Moon to Mars. The mission is very compelling. NASA's vision is to make life on Earth better all the way around and to explore the cosmos. So it's a very exciting mission. Our folks are newcomers to the agency. They do want to do hands-on work. So, of course, we've been challenged during the pandemic like everyone else. And so that has really compelled us even further to think about how do we attract this talent and how do we keep it. So NASA also, in the Employee Viewpoint Survey that's administered every year, NASA for the 8th year in a row has been voted or assessed by our employee workforce as the best place to work in the federal government. for large federal agencies. So that's something that we're very proud of, and I think that it is not without effort and not without intentionality that our people are our greatest asset, and that's how we treat them. And so I think that our mission, first of all, anchors it, but then it is really the charge of human capital to lead in that area about how do we ensure that employees are engaged, that they're motivated, that we have a diverse workforce. So we have a lot of opportunities for people to go on details. We have training opportunities, world-class programs that employees can apply for and be selected. So we have just many, many opportunities for employees to better themselves, while they're here. So I think that, in many ways, we don't want to rest on our laurels, though, just because we have, historically had this low turnover rate. We recognize that the world is changing around us. So we've had to step up our game because we want to make sure that we maintain that low attrition rate.
We're coming up to a break here, and I want to ask you real quick before we get into the break, are you able to meet private industry salaries? So you talk about the importance of the mission. Does the importance of the mission in selling the job to a potential new hire outweigh salary gains that they could make in the private industry? Are you able to compete with salaries in private sector?
Well, that is one of our challenges, right? Because as you stated, with the federal government, there's a process to getting hired. And so we talk a lot about, we can't compete with if we go to a career fair and, we have another space agency that they can hire folks on the spot. So we've been doing a lot to move our hiring process forward. Because we recognize that, it is hard to compete as a federal agency sometimes because our systems are very outdated. There are still many hoops that we have to jump through. And it's difficult because we have a pay scale that we have to adhere to.
We need to go to break here, Susan. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We need to go to break. When we come back, I want to continue this conversation and imagine a hypothetical situation where you've got a young engineer standing there looking at your booth at a hiring fair, and right next to you is, let's say, Lockheed Martin, and what you tell them to make them interested in you. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. I'm on the line with Susan Whitfield. She's the director of the Office of Human Sources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. We'll be right back. This is Cam Marston, and I'm with Cajun Mike of E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, if a homeowner thinks they have termites, do you offer inspections? What about someone buying a new home? Can you come in and take a look and see if there are termites in their new home?
Yeah, basically what we would do on a home above and beyond anyone else is we actually do a thorough inspection. But above that, we will use infrared imaging that will allow us to see problems in the wall and at times can tell us if there's anything going on.
That's fantastic, Cajun Mike. How can people find you?
They can find me at e3pest.com.
That's the letter E, the number 3, pest.com. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. I'm on the line with Susan Whitfield. She's the director of the Office of Human Resources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. I was wondering not long ago, I wonder how hard it is these days to hire a rocket scientist. Well, Susan has answered the call. She spent a year on assignment at NASA headquarters. She's also the deputy director for NASA's Business Operations Directorate for Human Capital. She answered the call, and there couldn't have been a better one. Susan, prior to the break, we were talking a little bit about the specifics. So imagine you've got this engineer, and he or she is standing there looking at the NASA booth at an employment recruiting event, and adjacent to the NASA booth is a Raytheon or a Lockheed or one of the defense contractor booths. And you both want this young man or woman. What is the NASA pitch to him or her? What are you going to tell them that are going to make them interested in you?
Sure. It's a great question because, we have many partners that are doing wonderful things. And a lot of the contractors that are working in aerospace, they do have contracts with NASA or with the Department of Defense. And so I think really we hone in on our mission, Cam. NASA is embarking on missions that are on Earth and beyond. And we reach out to for their ideas. We're looking for fresh ideas to help us get there. And we also, talk about the passion that our people have. We are looking for folks that their talents align with their passion. We talk a lot about, NASA's best place to work in the federal government. We are looking for folks that are looking for a challenge. And it's not just about, it's whether they have worked in the military, the corporate world, manufacturing. I would say probably about 66% of the folks we bring on each year are their entry, our mid-level employees. But we are looking, NASA has an aging workforce like many federal places. And so we are definitely looking for the fresh outs. We employ pathways. And I think that, we, part of our sales pitch, if you will, is just, where can you fit into our space, right? We've been breaking barriers to achieve the seemingly impossible for years, from walking on the moon and now Moon to Mars mission. And it's, manned space flight. Our folks, our employees are working to put humans in space. So it's really that passion for exploration that we're looking for. And I think that, money is definitely part of it, financial incentives. But folks are also looking for something that transcends just the dollars. And NASA has a lot of benefits to offer, beyond the paycheck.
So you're right. And what I understand about the youngest hires today is mission and purpose and culture is very important to them. And I want to talk to you about how you perpetuate that in NASA. Now, your bio here tells me that you've been with it 3 decades at the Marshall Space Flight Center. You can remember the days of the space shuttle. You, as a child, likely remember the lunar landings and all of this kind of stuff. But my kids are all under the age of 20, and the space shuttle is something they don't even remember. It's what they used to do back in the good old days. And they used to go to the moon back in the old times, which is just crazy to think about. Yeah. That back in the good old days, we used to go to the moon and we don't do that anymore. But the culture that was so unique to NASA for those years of the space shuttle and before seems to, and this is the observer outside looking in, kind of tailed off for a while post-space shuttle. What is the culture there now? And is it what it used to be? And how does NASA perpetuate this culture that people want to work for?
Yeah, I think that, you're absolutely right? It's hard, for me to think about back in the old days. But yeah, that is how, some young people may perceive it. So I think we have worked very, very hard. Every administration that we've had in NASA has a true passion for exploration. So it's every day. We live the groundbreaking. We live the challenges. And so I would say inside the agency that excitement, it lives on. And we are embarking on a new, Moon to Mars mission. There's a lot of excitement around that. We're working hard to generate that with our STEM agencies and entities across the United States. We visit schools frequently. We have recruitment fairs that we talk to kids, and as I said earlier, I think NASA's brand is still, really strong. We are still the only agency, in the United States that has put a man on the moon. And so we have that legacy, but we know that we can't just continue to live on our legacy, that we have to have new and exciting missions, and we do, to continue to engage young people, of today. And I think that a lot of people that we have working at our agency, as you said, they've had long and storied careers. So, they're the kind of people that young folks want to be mentored by. they want to work side by side and hand in hand with someone that does have that long history and that has the kind of passion that you need to continue in the field of space exploration. So I think we are still successful. I don't think that our demographics show and our hiring ability shows that folks are still really interested in NASA. We put out job announcements that are only out for a few days, and many times we get, thousands of applicants for a single job. So I'm very proud of the agency in that way, and I think that we're able to continue that success because of our focus on employees. I mean, we truly invest in our employees, and we know that NASA is our people. I mean, that is what NASA is. It's the people. And I will say that, we have a lot of type A personalities, a lot of driven folks at NASA. It's not just a job and it's not just a career. I would say that many people feel that NASA is really a way of life. I mean, I certainly feel that way. It's part of who I am. And I think that if you talk to a lot of people, they would tell you the same.
One of the things, Susan, that continues to come up in my interviews of organizations that are not struggling with turnover right now is the importance of culture. And though you've not said it in those exact words, I hear it coming out of your references. And a part of that culture is exploration, is curiosity. Is there a concerted effort within your organization to perpetuate the culture? And let me give you an example. One of the guys that I interviewed not long ago, smaller company than NASA for sure. I guess that's almost idiotic to say most budgets of organizations are going to be smaller than NASA's, but his job is president and chief motivational officer. His job is to perpetuate the culture of the organization that they have worked very hard to create. And as a result of this culture, retention is low. Is there anybody on the NASA team that is trying to perpetuate the culture for the long-term interest of higher retention, lower turnover?
So absolutely. We do have, culture officers. We don't, of course, with such a large organization, there's not just one. I will tell you that every senior executive, every leader at NASA is expected to hone that, to work on the culture, whether it's the culture of the team, the culture of the division, or the culture of an entire center. We are all very focused on that. And NASA's culture is extremely strong and it runs very deep, right? And I'm not saying that everything is positive about it. I mean, there was a time when our culture was, which led to, some things that happened in our past. It's like, let's make sure that we are building a culture where everyone feels safe and speaking up, where everyone feels like their voice matters. And I will tell you that I think you would be hard-pressed to find an organization that does put as much effort into building the kind of culture that is curious, as you said, but that we're team-oriented. We're striving for excellence. We have agility in often ambiguous environments. We embrace change. And we are ready to adapt to what the future brings. And I think that is something that is instilled in every employee. And it's critically important to an organization like NASA that we build the right culture, right? That we are focused on diversity, equity and inclusion and accessibility, for everyone, so that folks feel a part of the mission and not just standing waiting for someone to tell them what to do, that they're very empowered.
So there's probably someone that runs their organization listening right now, and he or she is thinking, boy, I'd love to figure out how to perpetuate the culture of my organization. What are the skills needed? So you said all your managers, all your leaders are somewhat expected to invest in the perpetuation of the unique culture of NASA. Do you train them how to do that, or is that just something that you expect them to figure out and to duplicate what was done to them back in the day? How do you hold them accountable to perpetuating that culture?
So it's actually the people component of our leaders' jobs is at the top with their technical accountability. So it is actually in performance, assessments and standards defined every year that everyone has, performance appraisals. But it's more than that. It's not a check the box. It is accountability each and every day. And yes, we have a lot of training around that. We have workshops. We have just, sessions where heart-to-heart talks happen. It's really part of the daily fabric of how we go about doing our jobs. It's not just, okay, go to training and now you're doing a good job at leading your people. It is something that's part of, the fabric, that it's a really high expectation, that our people are our greatest asset and that we treat them that way. I mean, if we can't bring every single person along, if everyone doesn't feel connected to the mission and know what they're doing, then we're not going to be able to do the things that we've set about to do. It's really, I think it's people at NASA, it's like, if we set our minds to it and we work together, we can do anything. And I think that's perpetuated all the way down. Yeah.
Susan Whitfield is the director of the Office of Human Resources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. You're listening to What's Working, presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. We'll be right back. The Alabama Center for Real Estate, known as ACRE, strives every day to be a valued resource that supports and promotes Alabama's real estate industry and promotes economic and workforce development across the great state of Alabama. ACRE and Alabama, a championship collaboration. Get to know ACRE and learn more about their offerings and their events at their website, www.acre.culverhouse.ua.edu. Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. Susan Whitfield is on the line with me. She's the director of the Office of Human Resources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. It's presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the University of Alabama. Susan, recognizing the importance of the engineers, that their work and their understanding of such things is what gets these extraordinary projects that NASA undertakes off the ground. I'm certain you must have other demands for other types of employees. I know that there's not a liberal arts major that's using his philosophy training to power a rocket to Mars, but what else do you look for outside the traditional STEM jobs?
Sure, that's a good question, and I think there's a place for just about everyone at NASA that is drawn to the space industry. We have business professionals, of course, human resources, human capital, like what I'm involved in. We have communications, financial. We have scientists, data scientists, analytics, those kinds of things. So there is an array. The majority of our hires every year are engineers, but we also have to make sure that we have world-class folks supporting our world-class engineers. So we have an array of careers that are available.
Do you do you have security clearance issues in hiring your engineers, or anyone for that matter? Does NASA does that apply to NASA?
Yes, we do have positions that are subject to security clearances. All of our senior executive service positions, or the majority of them, have a security clearance. And so we follow the same guidelines as the rest of the federal government in making sure that, people's backgrounds are appropriately checked and goes through security. Of course, we have, a contingent of security professionals at the agency. So we work with other federal agencies that grant those. So we do have security clearances, and, we don't have any issues that any other federal agency would not experience.
If you could hire 100 of one type of background right now, would it be, and you could get as many as 100 of what you wanted, would it be all be engineers? I mean, is that the greatest demand that you have at NASA right now, is for engineers?
I would say that is the greatest demand, of course, that we have. Systems engineering and integration is critically important. As we move towards the future, we do have very specific disciplines, propulsion, those kinds of engineers. But I would say that as we go forward, that we do need folks that can integrate across the board in engineering. So systems engineering is a big one. But I think we'd have to, throw in some scientists. We would have to add in some business professionals, because again, if we don't have the kind of workforce, to support our engineering, then we aren't going to be able to accomplish our missions either. But of course, if I could have 100 hires, and the majority of those, yes, would go towards engineering.
How important is it to recruiting engineers to the Marshall Space Flight Center? How important is the city of Huntsville, the offerings of the community? I was a part of a group not long ago that talked about, gathered information and held a panel talking about how to recruit young people to Southwest Alabama, which is where the show is based, down here in Mobile. And all the media says, well, they need coffee bars and they need, exotic food type of locations and food trucks and stuff like that. And the roots of it, once we got into this conversation at the event, was, that's kind of all icing on the cake. It's decoration. How important is Huntsville and the offerings of that city to recruiting engineers to NASA at your location?
That's a great question. And we actually spent some time talking about that recently with our Office of Communications and Community Outreach. And so I think that anytime folks are looking to relocate and move, that all of those things that you talked about are very important. And of course, it goes beyond that. It's, is this a good place to raise a family? What is the cost of living? What does that look like? And so when you compare Huntsville to other cities around the country, I think that those kinds of things do appeal to people. I think that at first blush, folks may not be as excited about, hey, like you said, come to Alabama. I don't know that people realize until they get here really what we have. I mean, we have a jewel in Huntsville and all the surrounding communities, a wonderful place to live, and it's starting to get some national attention. And so it is very, it's critical, right, that we're able to explain Huntsville and the things that this community offers in the surrounding area in a way that is enticing to folks. Come and check it out. Not only do we have these awesome jobs and opportunities, but it's also a great place to live and work. And I mean, you know that Huntsville, and I think all of Alabama, but in particular this corridor around Huntsville, we've made extreme strides in recent years in really enabling us to sell this area as a recruiting. And by the way, as we move into future of work, that we will have some positions available that are not necessarily geographically bound, work from anywhere. There will be some of our positions that will actually be able to be fully remote. So that is something that we are starting to explore. It's always an area that NASA was pushing forward in, but I will say that we were exponentially propelled forward with the pandemic and how we've been able to work over the past couple of years. So I don't think that we'll ever go back to where we were as far as that.
And is NASA telling you we won't go back to where we were? Is NASA making a directive, or is that your hunch?
No, it's something that we know and we have communicated. Of course, many of our positions are hands-on work required, but NASA is definitely leaning forward and embracing the future of work. And we'll actually be having a town hall this week to talk about, hey, we're going forward. We're not going back to exactly how we were. We're going to work in a new way, in a new space, and we're going to see, what's possible. So we're actually in an experiential phase, probably over the next year, of kind of pushing the boundaries on that with remote work, which will be great in a lot of our positions, because as far as recruiting, that will open up a pool of talent that perhaps we haven't had access to before. Some people don't want to relocate. They want to live where they live and they want to work. So we're going to really be exploring that, and I'm excited about all the possibilities that we have there.
I'm curious how many people you hire a year there in the Huntsville location.
Well, and it varies, right? I think that as far as NASA as a whole, every year we hire between 500 and 1,100 new employees every year. Some are perms. We have started utilizing terms more, which is a variety of from 2 to 6 year appointments. So at Marshall, it varies, definitely less right now. Of course, as you know, our budget is tied up through Congress, so it depends on our mission and, what kind of budget we have every year.
We're coming to the close here, and I want to ask you, this is kind of a wide open question. What would surprise me as an outsider, a non-government employee? What would surprise me most about working with and in and a part of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Houston?
That's a great question. I think that that people might be surprised to find that, even though it's a large organization, and people are spread out, the family feel that you have, in particular at Marshall. I think that folks very much feel close to their coworkers. We rely on each other. I think trust is very important. So I think people might be surprised at really just the hometown and family feel that you have when you are part of the Marshall family.
Do you get a sense that there are people that want to work in your industry and don't want to work in defense because you create, you build, you explore, you add knowledge to the world, the net knowledge of the world? NASA is a plus, is a contributor to. Whereas in some of the defense contractors, my understanding is there is the attitude of some youth that say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in the war business. I don't want to be in the bomb business. But if I'm going to use my engineering degree, I'm going to use it for the creation of something. Have you ever had that conversation with a new hire?
Sure. Yes. And you're spot on, right? There's lots of good work, especially around Huntsville. There's many options for folks, but I do think that people are compelled because of just what you said. It's around, that innovation is really a staple. And it's a must to have a strong team, and that everyone's opinion counts. And so folks are drawn to, they want to be part of that exploration because we're always embarking on something new. It's like a range of adventures. To understand the planet, the solar system, and beyond. That is very compelling. And for some people, it is really an overpowering recruitment tool. It is built into our mission.
Susan Whitfield is the director of the Office of Human Resources at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Susan, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. I'll be right back with final comments. This is Cam Marston with Cajun Mike of E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, houses on pilings can have termites eat their way up inside the piling and enter the house. The homeowner never knows about it, but your company offers protection. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Cam. Basically, what we have designed is a program, and what we do is we will actually drill to the center of the piling and put a product in the center that will stop the termites from coming up into the home.
Stucco exteriors as well?
Correct.
How can people find you, Cajun Mike?
They can find me at e3pest.com.
That's the letter E, the number 3, pest.com.
Hey, this is David Lane with Coast Diagnostics. And when I'm not doing COVID testing, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
Very nice of Susan to spend so much time with us. I remember hearing stories back in the day of working for NASA and how everybody from the engineers to the people who painted the buildings to the people who swept the floors, regardless of the role or the degree of responsibility, there was a pride in working for NASA because of what it was doing. Now, this was back during the lunar mission days. It sounds as if there is somewhat the same. It continues today based on the words that Susan used to describe her workforce and the reason people come to work there. There's a pride in that, and it's good to hear that that pride is not completely gone. One of the things that she and I touched on, but we didn't use these terms, was the desire of what we're looking at as the next generation, the youngest generations of employee, to get involved with businesses that are not for lack of a better term, destruction oriented. There is a movement that you may have heard about the ESG movement. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governmental. And it began, to my knowledge, little knowledge here, so this is what I understand, as an addition to your stock portfolio. You would add ESG companies that were low pollutants. That's E, environmental. S is the social stuff. It's a lot of diversity inclusion and how they put pressure on their vendors to reach certain diversity numbers, and G being governance. How is compensation run across the organization? What are the whistleblower protections in the organization? ESG. And these organizations apply to be ESG recognized, and then people would want to buy shares in those companies in order to support their attitudes. Well, we're seeing a movement now, and this is somewhat new to me. This may be something routine to you listening, of people wanting to work for those organizations. So I, as an engineer, for example, would say, all right, I will work for you, NASA, Lockheed, whoever, but tell me about your ESG efforts. And I'd like to see evidence that you mean these types of things. And I would suspect NASA would rank high in ESG organizations to work for. You obviously can't buy stock in NASA, but it would be an attractor to a type of person who would want to come to work there. Very important. And I think for employers listening out there, we can expect a slow conversation to evolve here in Alabama towards ESG type of work environments. These trends started on the West Coast. They've become present in the East Coast, and these types of trends slowly move towards the middle. Thanks again to Susan. All right. Again, for my Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery listeners, thank you so much. We look forward to providing you content in your marketplace. I hope you'll adopt us like Mobile has. We're very proud of our relationship with our listeners in Mobile, and we want to do the same for you. If you want to hear this show again, go to whatsworkingcam.com. whatsworkingcam.com. You'll find the show as a podcast as well as previous shows. I encourage you to subscribe. I encourage you to rate us if that's what you want to do. Rate the show as a podcast. You can go back 4 years of content there at that site and see the different people that we've interviewed. And find me on social media, Cam Marston. You'll find me in many locations as Cam Marston and then the numeral 1, Cam Marston 1. And finally, email me with thoughts, ideas, etc. Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. What's Working is brought to you by the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. Show is produced by John Thompson with Eye on Digital. We'll have another show next week. Have a good week, everybody.